Hola, buenas tardes.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. Right on time. Let's move on with our session about shaping the future of the Internet governance, and I would like to give the floor to our moderator, Helmut. Thank you, Yolanda. I'm going to switch to English.
Discussing shaping the future of the Internet governance, an open dialogue between pioneers and young leaders. And in the morning session, we have 5 pioneers and young people discussing 5 different questions. And then we start to go over to the audience. And we have some questions already waiting for discussion. So I will start again. If you are ready to have a question, you have 1 minute to express your intention, your question, your doubt, and then we will discuss with the panel. And we have a half hour because we need to stop sharp at 3:30. So please, we have 1 remote, I think so, yes? Was waiting from the morning? Not now? Okay.
Les recuerdo también que contamos.
Let me remind you that we have interpretation services. You can get a headset at the foyer so we can understand what every participant will share with us. Thank you very much.
Quem quer iniciar? Who will start? We are in Mexico, and Mexico sometimes is well known as to have a siesta after lunch, but we don't have siesta. We need to work. Really? Yes? Okay. Please.
Thank you, Helmut. I have a question for Florian. I don't know if you know that he's actually been doing internet governance since he was 15 years old, working specifically on the area of internet safety, and has since then been involved in various discussions in different places around that. So I want to ask him, how has that been? From you, I understand that you believe in an approach which is more about empowering children and young users of the internet, increasing their capacity to respond to harmful content and harmful practices. But yet, whenever I talk to a government or a policymaker, all I hear is child protection this and child protection that. So do you feel you've been effective in influencing that, or not really?
So maybe to quickly clarify, I was doing a lot of work with the NSAFE project, which also, so I didn't know about internet governance, even though I was working with NSAFE, because I was young and nobody told me about it, and I was not informing myself about internet governance. Anytime I went online, I was working with NSAFE and child safety, and there was nobody telling me, okay, there is a whole broader aspect to the topic and internet governance, so it took me quite a while to figure that out by myself. So your actual question, if I was affecting something. So the problem with policymakers is that usually, I don't know if there is this unwritten rule, the older you are, the more speech time you get. That's something I seem to witness more often than I would like to. And time is already really short. I'm pretty sure that I did something, but I cannot prove how effective it was. I was trying to talk to a lot of policymakers and people who are in the project, but it could certainly have been more effective.
Thank you, Professor Hiroshi.
Yeah, regarding that question, Japan has had a discussion about whether the ISP or government should have the filtering policy or filtering mandating for the ISP. I don't like that. Then I asked my daughter, who was about 15 years old. She mentioned, she responded to me that why people has to make such a filtering by someone. She has a good skill to smell bad contents. So that is a very, first reaction by her. And also, when we discuss in the high level, the Japanese government about such a thing, then one of the interesting thing was, say, the filtering should be able to control by parents, not by government, not by ISP. Probably the parents could use those, ISP filter by their choice. though some parents would not like to apply those filters. That is, providing the alternative or opportunity to the individual. That was our discussion at the time.
Thank you. Vint, please.
Just one small observation. I think the best filter in the whole world is the one that's up here. And so if we're going to teach our kids to think critically about what they see and hear, that will help them regardless of whether they're seeing and hearing it on the internet or in the newspapers or radio or television or from their friends. And I'm not suggesting that means that we don't need to take any steps to consider some filtering, as Professor Isaki suggests, but I think the best filter in the world is the one that you build into your head, and that's what we should teach children to do.
Question from the remote participation.
Yes, Deirdre Williams, Civil Society, Santa Lucia, West Indies, said, online no one knows how old are you. So this may be a very good way of becoming engaged. However, the perception of remote participation needs to be changed. With proper organization, you can participate effectively online. Look at Net Mundial. We need to use the technology, not just talk about it. To few and very silent remote participants this year, although several of those who spoke identified themselves as young.
Who is willing to comment this question, this concern? Vint, again.
I think it's really hard for us to figure out how old people are. You can see where that's heading. I mean, where you have to have personal identification in order to use the internet. I don't think that's a good idea. There's the other side of this coin, too. Sometimes it's good not to know. Young people often have better ideas than you would expect them to, and you don't want those ideas to be discounted just because they happen to be young. And so I kind of like the idea that there isn't any evidence as to age when I engage in dialogue.
Thank you.
Yes. I'm a teenager from Hong Kong, and I'm 16. I have a question. IGF is not common in Hong Kong. Most of the people in Hong Kong do not know there's a forum for us to express our views about the internet. I think the government in every country should arouse the awareness of the internet. And also, I don't know if there is holiday in other countries, but in Hong Kong, we have to take leaves to attend this forum. So I think when should IGF be held is one of an important matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Stefan?
Yeah, in this case, a girl of 15, the problem is in any country also to involve the school and to make the Ministry of Education to invest in this. And so this is something that has to be done starting at the school, and of course also the families should encourage things like that.
Thank you. Kimberly?
If I could just say a quick comment. In Brazil, we are now starting this young initiatives made by young people and for young people. So maybe if our governments don't pay attention to the necessity of speaking about internet governance issues or internet issues in our schools, you can, as a young person, start small groups and talk about this thing and spread the word about internet governance. And we have some initiatives in Brazil and in Latin America and in many other countries that are already based on that.
Bianca?
So I really appreciate that there's more and more young people from Hong Kong who's coming. One thing I want to, obviously you're taking holidays to come, which I think everyone is really appreciative. One thing, if you cannot come this next year is to participate remotely and perhaps organize a hub at your school. So I think those are, concrete next steps that you can take in order to continually participate.
Florian?
So I really like that question because for myself, I'm also always struggling with that. So right now I'm just skipping university and not attending the courses. That is easy because in university you can do it, you have to catch on your own time. But in school I was lucky enough to have a headmaster who gave me leave, but probably not every school is going to do that. So maybe there should really be raised the question, is this the beginning of December the right time to make an IGF? So maybe there can be found a way where, at least in the hosting country, there are holidays right now, so young people from the host country can attend more easily.
Thank you. Tiago, I like that you use 1 minute to explain the program that you are doing with children and teachers in Brazil. 1 minute.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Glaser. Yes, we have a project that we are developing together with the prosecutor services in Brazil, together with the Brazil Internet Steering Committee, and we organized that. It's a literacy program, it's a capacity building program that is developing all across the country. Over the last 2 years, we have more than 3,000 teachers and teenagers directly involved in that capacity building program in 16 different cities. And the outcomes, it's really inspiring. We have the opportunity to discuss issues like ethics, citizenship, human rights, the Marco Civil, civil framework for Internet in Brazil, and also the principles for Internet governance in Brazil that was set up by CGI. So it's a very good experience, and I can share more information afterwards. Thank you.
And only to remember the Net Mundial conference that we have 2014 in Brazil, we bring in 40 hubs from all over the world. And they live participate in the discussions and in proposals, so we can use more technology to bring young people in. It's a reality, we can do it. Question here in the front, please.
Hello, my name is Sharda. I'm a research fellow at the University of Pennsylvania, but I want to speak in the capacity of a former fellow and as a newcomer very much so in this community. One of the things that I realize is that when I speak about internet governance in the community that I belong to, or the community that I did belong to until very shortly before I graduated, internet governance is often perceived as esoteric and often perceived as something that is not within the control of the people like us, but often in closed spaces, decisions that are being made. I feel like that perception needs to change, especially amongst youth, and I wanted to understand from the expertise on the panel, what are the ways in which we can change that perception beyond just word of mouth, which is what I had to rely on to say that this space is a lot more open than other spaces that I have had experiences in.
Thank you. Who would like to answer? Vint?
Let me suggest a couple of things. The first one is to continue the disruption that Grace was proposing earlier today to reform the IGF activity to integrate young people into it better. But the second thing would be to also urge others where policy making is being discussed. That could be ICANN on the technical side, IETF in the social domain, the Internet Society, and urge them to find ways of bringing young people into the discussion so we can have a more direct effect of your opinions on the policies that are proposed.
Comments from the panel? Yes, please, Henriette.
Yes. I think that Sharada, thanks for that question. I think it is true. I think these processes are more open to participation than many other processes. I think actually influencing them can be quite hard. also there's different relationships. The IGF is really about discussion and dialogue and debating issues. So it's a fantastic space to learn and build confidence. But I think it only really works well as a space if you then participate in the actual policy spaces as well. So I think mapping your participation is important. So that would be ICANN, which has its own processes, for example, but also national processes. And I think what can sometimes happen is that people are very discouraged when they go back to the national level, and there's less openness, less opportunity to be influential than there is at the global level. So we need to change the systems, but we also need to carry on testing them and pushing the boundaries.
Remote participant?
Yes, Alex, a PhD student, made a question for all panelists. Should parents always filter for children? What about when children need to be protected from their parents and family? What if parents that block information about LGBT, sexual education, and child abuse?
Would like to comment? Professor Hiroshi?
Yeah, basically the engineer researcher working on the kind of filtering technology, right? So they would providing some good or appropriate filtering for per person based on the profiling. That is the technical part is working on. Also, the parents has their own principle or idea which contents should be filtered, should be transparent. Once again, that is the rights of the parents to live with the kids.
Thank you. Stefano, you like to comment?
A very short sentence. This meeting is very, very interesting because we are global here. But now we listened from some question like the one of the girl of Hong Kong. And so we need to invest in this kind of interaction with this criteria. Think globally, then act locally.
Good, good. Florian?
Yeah, so as a child, you're obviously very reliable on your parents making the right decisions. In Europe, there's the INSEF network, and they're really trying to educate parents that blocking and keeping children away is not the right way to go, but more to discover together. And in the end, that's really a big, I would say, social problems if parents are just not open to what the internet offers and try to block everything from the children. But I don't see really a point what we can do besides educating parents. And reaching out to parents is really hard because children, you get them at school, students you get at university, and like other stakeholder groups, you find them in businesses. But parents, they don't work at the same company. So you need to find a way to reach out to all the parents.
Vint?
Well, I remember when I was 15, and if my parents tried to keep me from learning something, we found ways around that. And I'm pretty sure most of the kids I know are capable of that too, internet or no internet.
Henriette?
Yes, I think it's challenging because it's difficult. Younger children are exposed to content that one feels is inappropriate for them. But I think that blocking is not the answer and filtering is not the answer. These are social changes, they're bigger changes. And I think parents use this software to avoid having to talk to their children, having complex and difficult conversations. And it's just not an effective substitute. And I think as the remote participant pointed out, often there's more real harm getting to children from their parents than there is from the internet in terms of child sex abuse and other patterns in child abuse.
Bianca, I saw that you was. Yes, please, Bianca.
Thank you. So I think there's a balance between, the rights as well as, the protection. So I think there is a lot to discuss. But I think it is also a learning process. So I think, parents, again, as Vin said, I'm not that mischievous as a young person, but I still get away with things that, if they block me from doing. And I think part of it is, I have learned those lessons myself, and I have come to realize, like, oh, I shouldn't be late, or, oh, I shouldn't, stay up all night and have an exam the next day. So these are things that we gradually learn through these processes of exploring. And again, pointing back to Finn's point is that your brain is really your best filter, and as parents, it's important and utmost important to have these difficult but important conversations with your children.
Ephraim?
For me, these are my comments. I believe parents should be more involved in raising awareness about child online safety and encourage the development and adoption of technologies for the protection of children online that respects the rights of children and the freedom of other internet users. Blocking of content does not make children and young people 100% safe online. My solution is improving the safety of children and young people online would be to empower children, parents, guardians, educators, and peers to identify and deal with harmful content through education and how to use and empowering them on how to use technology both safely and responsibly, and making available the easy-to-use adjustable tools to manage their access to this content. That is for the younger children that Andret mentioned. Thank you.
Professor Roshi,
very short. From the technical point of view, or scientific point of view, common filter is not exist.
Thank you. Question here. Mike for the auditorium.
Hello, my name is João Pedro. I came from Portugal. I'd like to go a little bit back and speak about the stratified concept of internet governments, because it's really easy to sometimes the message, like has been said, not reach the national level, or even when it reaches the national level, maybe sometimes it just stays over the capital. I came from Portugal. It's a small country, and even there, it's difficult to address these situations and go to the rural areas. So my question is, what actually can be done at a global level so that the message can go down, and whether the message, and when messages have to be also from each specific context, how can they really come up if sometimes they're not addressed? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before we answer, let's see, we have another question here and one remote. Let's have all the three questions together, then we can answer together. Please.
Thank you. My name is Tony. I come from Uganda. Mine is not a question, but is something that I want to share.
1 minute, please.
Looking at what we are discussing, personally, I see that the content filtering would not help. But what I would advise is that if we can come up with a strategy that addresses the cultural norms within our community, definitely we'll be able to accept the technology changes that goes to the rural communities, mainly to the young children. Even the schools that we normally approach to provide our services, we need to let them accept the culture of the new technology. That would be the last ending point. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the last will be the remote.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Hao Ran. I'm from China, and I come here this time as a ISOC Youth IGF Fellow. So during the past days, there is a very hot topic that's to discuss about how to engage more young people to internet governance process and the decision-making event. So my question, I have noticed that at APR IGF, there is a multi-stakeholder steering group that they have already opened their seats for young people. One of my very good friends, she is just 21 years old, and she had already become a MSG member. So my question is there any young people around 20 to become a MAG member? If there is not, is it possible to open the seat for young people to join MAG? Thank you.
Thank you. This question is not related to the panel, but we will send this to the MAG. Remote?
No.
No? The last one in the corner there. Please.
Hello, my name is Nomsa from Zimbabwe, and I had a quick question about initiatives with the youth. Are there any initiatives to make sure that the youth are content producers and not just consumers of the internet? Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 minutes to answer, very short answers. Florian, please.
So a very quick answer to the first question. I think it's really about ourselves to go from the global level, take clear and simple messages and use them in local projects, for example, national youth IGFs, to communicate also in rural areas. Because I'm myself from a town with 3,000 people, you have to go there by yourself and try to educate people. They're not going to check it online all by themselves. You or we as participants already on the global level, we have to take it down with us.
Thank you. Bianca?
I want to address quickly on the third question on the content producer versus content consumer. I would like to list an example. For example, for the YCIG, we came with the IGF ABC website, and that is a really good project to prove that we are content producers and instead of consumers only. And obviously, you have a lot more consuming stage in the beginning, but once you have understood that enough, age really doesn't give you a boundary as to whether you're able to produce or not. So yeah, feel free to participate in that process. Thank you.
Kimberly, very, very brief.
Yeah, quick comment on the third question. Some people from the Youth Observatory are already creating like capacity building courses on internet governance and things like that to apply to local schools and this kind of stuff. So there actually are many initiatives that we are getting and doing regarding youth participation and initiatives that come by the youth. So just...
Professor Hiroshi?
In order to participating from all of the world, you requesting to the local government or global people, you need transparent, good network.
Thank you.
Then use the tool.
Vint?
I'll try to answer several quickly. With regard to access to the internet, especially in rural areas, there are a number of new technologies being explored. One at Google is called Loon. These are balloons at 60,000 feet, and they circulate around the world. We're experimenting with that commercially now in Sri Lanka. Second, with regard to filtering based on cultural norms, that's very attractive, but I'd like to reinforce the idea of putting the filter in the head rather than putting it on the net. With regard to youth production of content, we see some of the most popular YouTube producers are in fact young people who really get that particular medium, and they're pretty spectacular. Some of these kids have 10 million people viewing their videos. That's 4 or 5 times larger than some of the most popular television series. So there's very good evidence here that the youth are terrific producers.
Thank you. Tiago, final remarks.
Thank you, Professor Glaser. I don't have a summary, but only one very brief concluding remark. This main session was very innovative on the format, well-balanced and strong in substance. I'm sure that we are just starting this very productive dialogue between the pioneers and the new generation leaders. The session also gives a clear message of the IGF full commitment to shape the future together with the next generation leaders, highlighting how the young people and newcomers are fundamental for internet inclusiveness and sustainable growth. Congratulations to all the session organizers, congratulations to the moderator, to the speakers and participants. Let's keep this dialogue open, active and engaged.
Back to you, Madam Chair.
Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you very much, everyone. I believe that the biggest challenge that we have in internet governments is to remember that this is a community effort. And in our community, there is space for everyone. It doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your training, it doesn't matter where you come from. And whatever we learn from these days that we've spent here and the people you meet, it has to be translated in initiatives that would allow us to provide more value to each one of our activities locally. I'm very grateful to all of you for your enthusiasm. If I could describe this session, is the word passion. Passion for what we do, passion for what made us be here, and being 3:31, I declare this session closed. Thank you.